2023 is proving to be quite the year when it comes to controversies that really shouldn't be controversies, which this latest fiasco pertains to a tiff that has arisen between a pro-Christian slash MAGA rap artist and also the creation, selling, distribution of a purported conservative calendar that, is meant to kind of mimic pinup-y and girly type of calendars. My name's Greg Hoyt, and we're going to go ahead and dive into the shenanigans of this calendar controversy that has probably blown up to be something bigger than it needs to be. Here on the breakdown.
And I like good trees. Smoke so much weed you wouldn't believe. And I get more ass than a toilet seat. 3 to the 1, from the 1 to the 3. I met a bad bitch last night in the D. Let me tell you how I made it.
So this calendar controversy all stems from the creation of a calendar by a company known as Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer. From my understanding, this particular beer company, this Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer Company, was something that came into existence in response to, let's say, some of the odd marketing tactics and choices of other mainstream beer companies. Like, obviously, it's kind of on the nose. This is a purportedly conservative-leaning company. That's why it's called Conservative Dad's Ultra Right Beer. And they created a 2024 calendar featuring a myriad of personalities, female personalities, like biological women, that kind of aligned themselves with the conservative movement, and in some cases the libertarian movement, so on and so forth, doing a kind of like a throwback to like the 1940s, 50s, 60s kind of tame pinup slash housewife kind of look, like a Leave It to Beaver housewife type look. And the calendar itself is dubbed Conservative Dad's Real Women of America 2024, which part of the shtick of this whole thing, of the whole calendar thing, is to feature only, exclusively, biological women. Now, you have all sorts of, personalities, and I guess what you would call, political celebrities, political micro-celebrities, being featured in this calendar. You got folks like Ashley St. Clair, Riley Gaines, and also of note is the redheaded libertarian, Josie, the redheaded libertarian, I should say, because she is kind of one of the facets associated with the controversy surrounding this calendar. For the sake of context, some of the pictures featured in this Conservative Dad's calendar are, bathing suit pics. Although there is a chunk of them that are just largely tasteful, just women adorned in, regular, kind of sundresses, skirts, but not like terribly up high. But still, there has to be an acknowledgement that part of the appeal of this is, showcasing attractive women who are attempting to look attractive. Even if they are at times modest portrayals, they're still attractive women trying to look attractive, being sold on a calendar ostensibly marketed to men. So this is where Bryson Gray comes into the fold, where he retweets another individual who, showed some photos or video of the calendar, and the person he retweeted was, critical of it. And Bryson Gray, he's a big time Christian. He is the type of Christian that is always asking people to follow the word to the T, so on and so forth. He captioned a tweet calling the calendar itself demonic. Now, here's the thing with, Bryson Gray's characterization. Obviously, him calling that demonic got some knee-jerk reactions from people. People say, hey, you're kind of overshooting your shot here. Calling this demonic is a little bit over the top. Some people were saying, hey, the photos were largely tasteful in comparison to what has been normalized by the opposite end of the political spectrum. But as Bryson Gray, had an opportunity to expand upon his opinion, he addressed the fact that, yes, he was kind of being sincere when calling the calendar demonic, insofar that, as he interprets the Bible, as many people interpret the Bible, because it's pretty plain language in many respects, things that are not godly, and are of this earth and contradict, God's law, then yeah, by proxy, they're byproducts of the devil. They can be described as demonic.
Now, what I saw a lot of people do, they're trying to separate pictures that are less risque from the pictures that are flat out degenerate, right? This is what people try to do. You can't separate them. You know why? Red-headed libertarian seems like a nice girl. Nobody is saying she is a terrible human being, but she clearly supports the calendar. She is clearly telling people to go buy the calendar. This calendar is clearly was created to promote to men, for conservative men to buy, and it clearly can cause a stumbling block in lust in men.
And so what Bryson Gray was trying to explain, outside of just, citing Christian doctrine, outside of citing the Bible or anything like that, he and some of his supporters were trying to explain the nuance of this situation. That no matter how ostensibly tasteful some of these photo shoots were in comparison to a lot of the other smut and filth that circulates the internet and what have you, the calendar itself still feels like a light thirst trap, kind of meant to evoke a little bit of lusting over the, beautiful women featured in the calendar in bikinis. I don't think it's that controversial to characterize the calendar as such, because at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's like a light Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. That's generally what it is. Not the worst thing on the planet, but also at the same time, if you're going by biblical doctrine, biblical law, you can say, yeah, no, this is not godly, ergo demonic. But this whole shenanigans of Bryson Gray calling the calendar demonic and pointing out that, it leads people down a pathway of, lust and coveting and so on and so forth, it did gain the attention of one of the women featured in the calendar, Josie, the red-headed libertarian. And she took particular issue with Bryson Gray describing the calendar as demonic, and some of his fans saying, hey, this is promoting lust and coveting and so on and so forth, impure thoughts. And she was kind of pushing back and saying, hey, you guys are being ridiculous, this is too over the top. But again, keep in mind, this all stemmed from just a single opinion from Bryson Gray calling a calendar demonic. It could have been something that could have just been brushed off and be like, oh, okay, he's got an opinion on this based upon his religion, But unfortunately, it blew into something bigger, with Bryson Gray and the redheaded libertarian going back and forth, and also their respective fan bases and followers on social media jumping in the comments as well, making much ado about nothing. But if the concept of people arguing over the contents of a calendar online weren't silly enough already, the whole matter just became a lot more ridiculous. And this one, yeah, the blame is going to fall on Josie the redhead libertarian, because she is claiming that she's being stalked by proxy by Bryson Gray, because apparently one of his followers or one of his fans Googled pictures of Josie the redhead libertarian from a few years ago, just showing old photos of her, and made a post of it on Twitter. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. A public figure having their old photos Googled and then just posted online for whatever kind of points somebody are trying to score in a debate or whatever. They're trying to dunk on somebody. That's not stalking. That's kind of tacky at best, but it's not stalking. Some of Bryson Gray's fans, and I think even he himself, addressed the stalking allegation, kind of pointing out two different things. Number one, he as an individual can't be held responsible for the exploits of all of his followers, especially when you have, followers in the tens of thousands range. You can't be responsible for every one of their actions. Furthermore, Bryson Gray and a handful of his fans addressed the stalking allegation and kind of laughed it off like, okay, this is a lot of things, but stalking isn't one of them. But apparently Josie the redhead libertarian genuinely believes that whatever this fiasco turned into is some kind of act of stalking. So much so that she even claimed she was going to be exploring legal options. This is so odd in so many ways, because we're talking about a social media beef, a Twitter beef that stemmed over one person's opinion, and they turned into this back and forth, and now you have one party who is claiming that they're being stalked and that they're exploring legal options. You know, not to sound like a broken record or anything like that, not to needlessly reiterate things, but you don't have to be, a legal scholar by any stretch of the imagination to deduce that what Josie, the redheaded libertarian, is characterizing as stalking is not stalking in the legal sense. Someone, just a random person on the internet, posting old photos of you that they were able to find online, which means either you or someone you knew already put them out there. They're already out into the interwebs. Just somebody posting photos, even with a derogatory caption, that's not stalking. Now, maybe in certain cases, depending on the frequency in which somebody does that and the context in which they're doing it, you could have maybe a claim of harassment eventually, but that takes quite the pattern of continued behavior if that is, just the sole thing that's being done, i.e. posting photos, so on and so forth. Now, you can absolutely say, hey, that wasn't cool, or hey, that was creepy. But to call it stalking, yeah, no, it's just a really poor understanding of what stalking genuinely is. Again, this is exactly what I was talking about when mentioning that this issue got blown up way bigger than what it ever needed to be. And there's silliness and foolishness on both sides of the parties involved in this social media tiff. Because on one hand, you've got a relatively tame, just a benign calendar shoot featuring women in the libertarian and conservative movement that was, marketed towards conservative individuals. Yeah, is it meant to be a little bit of a thirst trap? Sure, but it's relatively tame, and there's probably bigger things that folks in the conservative movement can be raising hell over, rather than this. I mean, this is kind of small potatoes compared to some of the bigger issues that are out there. But on the other hand, you've got the exploits of the redheaded libertarian in all the shenanigans, where what started out as just like kind of like a brief back and forth, or what could have been a brief back and forth regarding criticism over her participation in this conservative dad's calendar, it turned into eventually her alleging that Bryson Gray was responsible for stalking her, involving some or one of his followers just, showing old photos of her. In short, the whole thing is absurd. It's ridiculous. Like, this shouldn't even be a thing, but you've already got people referring to it as Calendar Gate because of how much conversation this has drummed up with the conservative Christians, and I guess you would say the constitutional conservatives. They're having a back and forth over this whole effort. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much the long and short of it. Go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comment section below, and let me know whether you think, is this a situation where it just blew completely out of proportion, just became bigger than what it needed to be? Or are you leaning on one of the particular sides of the argument and saying, hey, no, this is an important thing to address because there's a problem with X, Y, and Z involving this party, this camp, so on and so forth? Anyways, guys, that was the breakdown. Peace.